Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we are going to talk about two news items and a question, all related to the same thing, and they're all worth going over this morning. One of them is just clearing up some inconsistent reporting about something. One is talking about something that is incredibly consequential, and the other is going behind the headlines on something and getting a little bit deeper. Okay, so let's do the clarification part first. There are a bunch of demonstrations that are occurring. They are being described in a bunch of different ways. One of them is they are anti-war demonstrations occurring in Israel. That is not how I would classify it. Not in any way. Sure, it's a huge crowd. There are people in it who are opposed to the war in the way people think when that's said. There are also people in that crowd who are not happy with the way the war is being conducted because they don't think it's going far enough. There are also people who are there whose only concern is getting their people back. And then there are people who, realistically, it just seems like internal politics. And they are just opposed to Netanyahu. If I was to classify the demonstrations, I would not say that they are anti-war demonstrations. I would say that they're anti-Netanyahu. The reporting on that is all over the place. I think that's because the crowd is all over the place. They're coming from different places. Okay, so on to the consequential news, the big news. According to reporting, today is the day. Today, the United States and officials, I guess picked by Netanyahu, are going to have the conversation about Rafah. It'll be done via video conference, and this is to help Netanyahu avoid embarrassment because, he canceled the delegation, so if he sent one, it would make him look bad, so they're just going to do it, I guess, via Zoom. So, what is going to happen? Probably the most consequential conversation that has occurred between the Biden administration and Netanyahu's administration since the U.S. sent the advisors there saying, don't do a ground offensive. Pulling from some of the quotes, there are a couple of words that kept popping up that can give us some insight into what may happen. The U.S. side is saying that they are going to present alternatives, plural, to going into Rafah. The U.S. position is trying to avoid an offensive into Rafah. Alternatives, proposals, all of the terminology being used by people who are talking about it is plural. So what that means is the U.S. is going to give them a menu. They're going to give them a bunch of different alternatives, different types of operations that they could do instead of doing a ground offensive, a full-on offensive into Rafah. Everything on this menu is going to be better and cost less, and when I say cost less, I'm talking about lives, than an offensive into Rafah. Doesn't necessarily mean that everything on this menu is going to be something you're going to perceive as good. It's important to understand that now. There is no way of knowing or finding out ahead of time what the different menu options would be, but one would almost certainly be them saying, you have already degraded their warfighting capability. Anything that you do now is going to be it's going to be a loss because you'll end up force generating more for the other side. So now's the time to figure out the exit. That's probably where they'll start, but it's unlikely that that's where it finishes. It might move, and again, to be clear, I'm making these up. They're realistic options, but nobody knows what they're actually going to propose. They could move to, we could bring in a regional security force. You guys leave and let the regional security force conduct arrests. By going up against them with your military, you're giving them legitimacy. And try to exert the pressure that way. The other end of the spectrum could be something like, with the technology that's available, you don't have to put boots in. You could do a highly targeted air campaign, a precision package, just going after their leadership. It would have minimal collateral. Is that better than a full-on offensive? I mean, yeah, not much. Just about everything would be better. But what does that description actually mean? To put it into American terms, think drones. Probably wouldn't be exactly the same, but it would be pretty close to that. It's not like that would be without loss. So they're going to provide them various options in an attempt to avoid the full-on offensive. So that's what we know, and that conversation is supposed to start today. Now, if Netanyahu's team is just like, no, we're dead set on going in, that's when it would switch from the people that are presenting this menu, and then it would become more of a political thing, and then we find out whether or not Biden's going to use that leverage. That's where it's at. Okay. So then the last item is a question. And I love the question because it shows that people aren't just having, immediate knee-jerk reactions. But at the same time, I kind of have to... There's more to it than what's in it. Okay, so the question is basically, hey, can you tell everybody that the latest arms transfer has nothing to do with what's going on right now? If you don't know, the U.S. approved another transfer of weapons. Okay, so when that news broke, you had a whole bunch of people immediately be like, are you joking? And then you had foreign policy people come out and say, this doesn't have anything to do with what's going on right now. You can say that about the planes. You can say that and know that about the planes. But that's it. All of this stuff that was in this most recent package, it's not showing up for a while. The planes, I think, are 2 years out, at least a year out. It doesn't have anything to do with what's going on right now. The rest of the stuff, though, yeah, it's going to take months to get there. And you're probably correct in saying that those particular items are not going to be used. That's probably fair to say. But that doesn't mean it has nothing to do with what's going on right now. I don't have their internal inventories. I don't think you do either. If the other stuff, the stuff other than the planes, is being sent over to replenish what they're going to expend over the next month, no, it does. It does have something to do with it. You can say for sure the planes don't have anything to do with it. That's been a thing. The other stuff, it may not, but it might. You can't say that definitively one way or the other. If this is a situation where this is the stuff they plan on using in, I don't know, hypothetically speaking, an offensive into Rafah, and they're just ordering the replacement stuff for what they're going to use. I mean, sure, maybe those exact devices didn't get used, but them being sent freed up the use of the other stuff. It's not that simple. It isn't a thing of, this definitely doesn't have anything to do with it. Some of it, sure, but you can't say that about the whole package. But it's good to look beyond the immediate reaction to it. Even if it does get more complicated, the more you look at it. So that's what's going on. The big news is the conversation, is the discussion about Rafa and what might happen. That's what matters. If that conversation goes well, then a lot of the other stuff, it becomes less emergent. If it goes poorly, yeah, it's everything becomes more emergent. We probably won't know right away. I don't see either side coming out and immediately telling the truth. They'll talk about it, but immediately telling the truth about how the conversation went. The best thing you could hope for is that both sides come out and say that it was constructive. Something along those lines. That means they got somewhere. If there is discomfort expressed from the American team and the way they're relaying the events, it didn't go well. But you're not going to know a whole lot until later. I would not trust the first statements on how this conversation went to be entirely accurate. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.